Hi, history lovers! Welcome to my channel. Today we will look at Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn's marriage. We'll see why Henry married Anne and what Anne desired in her marriage with the king. Let's get started. Henry VIII had 6 wives, but only one of them was an Anne. What is it about Anne that made Henry fall head over heels for her? After all, she wasn't a princess or a queen, just a lady-in-waiting to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. But when Henry set eyes on her, he wanted her as his bride. This desire was so strong that he broke from the Catholic Church and annulled his marriage with Catherine just to marry Anne. Anne was born in the year 1501 in Heir Castle, Kent, England. She was the daughter of Thomas Boleyn, Earl of Wiltshire, and Elizabeth Rochford, who was the widow of Sir John Rochford. The family was well-connected and respected and had an impressive pedigree. They weren't royalty, but they were far from peasants. When Anne was just 2 years old, she was sent to live with her family in England. Her father had been appointed to the English court as ambassador to France. As a young girl, Anne would have received tutors in the home. At least one of these tutors was her brother George. She would have learned Latin from him along with other academics. Like most noble girls, her education would have included learning how to make herself attractive to a potential suitor. She was taught dancing, singing, poetry, art, and needlework. When Anne was around 13 years old, her father arranged for her to be a lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon. This was a position that would allow her to live in the royal court and receive a royal education. For a young girl of this time period, this was an excellent opportunity to learn the ways of the court. And if she impressed the king, she could find a very advantageous marriage. It was hoped that she might even catch the eye of the heir to the throne, Princess Mary. Anne would serve in this role for over 7 years until 1529. During this time, she was considered a great beauty, not just by courtiers, but also by the king. We know that Henry had seen Anne before. He had attended a masque in 1523, where Anne played the part of the Lady of Shalott. However, it was between 1527 and 1528 when he first became enamored with her. A masque was a form of entertainment which used dance, costumes, and masks to tell a story. The event was usually put on for the enjoyment of the king and the nobility. These events were extravagant affairs filled with lots of music and merriment.
Before you forget, subscribe to help us grow our channel.
The Lady of Shalott was a popular choice during this time period. The story came from the poem by Edmund Custis, The Tale of the Shrewd Lady of Shalott, published in 1560. The poem was based on a legend from medieval France. In 1528, Anne returned to France as part of a group that was to welcome the French king and Queen Frances III and Claude of France, who was Mary's suitor. Anne had once again caught the attention of Henry, and now he really wanted her as his wife. He began to pursue her, and she was aware of his unwanted advances. In fact, she was accused of leading the king on and encouraging his desires. The rumor spread that she had sent the king a love letter in which she referred to herself as his sweetheart. Now, there are some historians that claim that Anne never wrote such a letter. And even if she did write it, it could have been written in the French manner of speaking, in which the term amant or amante was a term that one could use when addressing a beloved, not necessarily a lover. In January 1529, Henry asked the Pope for permission to annul his marriage with Catherine so that he could marry Anne. The Pope refused this request, so Henry decided to break away from the Catholic Church and annul the marriage himself. The act of breaking away from the Church was greatly influenced by Anne. After all, it was because of her that Henry wanted to end his marriage. He didn't want to be bound by the vows he had taken so long ago to someone else. Once the annulment was secured, Henry wasted no time in marrying Anne. On January 25, 1533, the two were married in secret at a small chapel near Whitehall Palace.
Before you forget, subscribe to help us grow our channel.
There were rumors that the wedding had actually taken place on the 14th, but records show that the marriage was officially recognized on the 25th. When the news of the marriage reached Rome, the Pope reacted swiftly. The previous pope had been pressured by Henry and died under mysterious circumstances. Pope Clement VII excommunicated Henry. England was cut off from the church, and soon after, monasteries were dissolved and their land seized. Anne was given the title queen and a new residence at the palace. She also received many lavish gifts from her husband, including a ring with the motto, "The only way to have me is to love me." This was ironic because the marriage was anything but perfect. As we mentioned earlier, Henry was infatuated with Anne, but he was not in love with her. In fact, he had no intention of being faithful to her. As soon as he married Anne, he began to pursue other women. Anne was also unable to produce a male heir, and it seemed as if she would follow in the footsteps of Catherine. All of this made her very unhappy and caused stress in the relationship. Anne felt that she was losing her standing with the king and in the court. She was also aware of how quickly Henry had moved on and found other women more interesting. We don't know exactly what Anne desired from her marriage to Henry, but we can surmise that she expected fidelity, affection, and perhaps a true love from him. Instead, she got mockery, contempt, and betrayal. Anne had heard rumors that Catherine had been called a whore by Henry, and she knew that her own name was being slandered in the same way. She desired to be the one that Henry would stay by his side, the one that would have his undying devotion, but she was never that person for him. On July 19, 1536, Anne gave birth to a stillborn child. Rumors spread that she had poisoned herself and the baby in order to avoid bringing another disappointment to Henry. Later that summer, while walking through the streets of London, Anne was stopped by two gentlemen and arrested. She was taken back to her rooms at the palace, where she spent her last days. On May 17, 1536, Anne was led into the Tower of London. She was stripped of her titles, her positions, and her dignity. She was charged with adultery, incest, and treason. The charges were that she had an affair with her brother George and had been plotting against the king with the Duke of Norfolk.
Before you forget, subscribe to help us grow our channel.
Both of these charges were false, but they were enough to condemn her. She was offered a way out, a way to save her own life, but she wouldn't cooperate. She had to go down alone, taking her secrets with her. On May 19, 1536, Anne's trial began. Her defense attorney was Lord Dacre, and he argued that as the king's wife, she could not have committed treason against him. Unfortunately, this was not enough to sway the jury. The evidence presented to them was too damning. By the next day, a jury had been sworn in, and Anne was found guilty of all 3 counts. That evening, she was visited by a chaplain who asked her to confess her sins. She said that she had none to confess, for she had done nothing wrong. At 2:30 in the morning, Anne was awakened by 2 women and a child who sang a psalm as they prepared her for execution. She dressed in a black gown and black undergarments. She washed her face and combed her hair. She then went to the bathroom and was sick to her stomach. She requested a crucifix, which she held as she waited for the executioner to arrive. She was led to the scaffold where a crowd of people had gathered. She spoke to them, saying, "I am come hither to die, not as a martyr, for I am not a martyr. I have not done that for which men or women may suffer such a death." She then turned to the lieutenant of the tower and told him to speak kindly of her to the king. As she stepped onto the block, she adjusted her ruff to cover the head of the executioner. When it was removed, she bowed her head and did not move as the blade fell. Her body was dismembered and the pieces placed in separate coffins. She was buried in the vault of the Church of St. Peter ad Vincula in the Tower of London.
Before you forget, subscribe to help us grow our channel.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment. We would love to hear what you think. Thank you for watching.